A 21-year-old backpacker is swept over a waterfall in the Amazon. His friends are gone. He has no map, no food, and a foot that's rotting alive. For 3 weeks, he fights the jungle, his own mind, and the creatures living under his skin. He prays for death. Then he does something unthinkable to survive. This is the true story of Yossi Ginsberg. Yossi Ginsberg was young, hungry for adventure, and obsessed with exploring the uncharted Amazon. In 1981, after finishing his military service in Israel, he traveled to Bolivia. There, he met an Austrian named Karl Rupprechter. Karl was weathered, charismatic, and spoke of a hidden tribe and a river full of gold. Yossi was captivated. He recruited 2 other backpackers, Kevin Gale, an American photographer, and Marcus Stam, a Swiss teacher, and they followed Karl into the jungle. It was a disaster waiting to happen. The promised village never appeared. Food ran low. Karl seemed lost. The group turned on each other. Marcus's feet became infected with trench foot. Arguments broke out. Eventually, they split up. Karl and Marcus would try to walk back to civilization. Yossi and Kevin built a makeshift raft and decided to float down the river. They shook hands and parted ways. Yossi and Kevin would never see Karl or Marcus again. Yossi and Kevin's raft was a joke. Logs tied together with jungle vines. No map, no compass, no gun, just a knife and a backpack. The river carried them into rapids. The raft smashed against rocks and broke apart. Kevin managed to swim to shore, but Yossi was swept away, dragged downstream for nearly an hour, smashed against boulders, gasping for air. Then he heard a roar. A waterfall. He went over the edge. Somehow he survived. He washed up on a riverbank, alone, battered, and stunned. The jungle had swallowed him. For the next 3 weeks, Yossi Ginsberg would fight for his life in one of the most hostile places on Earth. At first, Yossi told himself he'd be fine. He was young, fit, resourceful. He had a small survival pack that washed ashore, matches, a poncho, a flashlight. He'd walk out in a few days. But the jungle doesn't care about confidence. The rain came every day, turning the ground into a swamp. His feet never dried. The skin began to peel off in strips. Maggots burrowed into the rotting flesh. He could feel them moving. He stumbled through the mud, hallucinating from hunger, seeing ghost villages that weren't there. On the 17th day, he gave up. He sat down in the mud and prayed for death. He couldn't walk anymore. His feet were 2 lumps of raw meat. He pulled out his medical kit, found a bottle of pills, and decided to end it. He put the pills in his mouth. Then he thought of his mother. She had survived the Holocaust. She never gave up. How could he? He spat out the pills and kept going. But he still couldn't walk. Yossi noticed a tree covered in fire ants. These weren't ordinary ants. Their sting was like being shot with a hot needle. He had an insane idea. If he couldn't feel his feet, maybe pain could wake them up. He shook the branch. Hundreds of fire ants rained down on him, covering his body. The pain was excruciating. But it worked. The adrenaline surged through him. He stood up and started walking again. That moment saved his life. Over the next few days, he taught himself to survive. He built a rough shelter from palm fronds. He caught fish with his bare hands. He ate raw bird embryos and mushrooms he prayed weren't poisonous. He learned to read the river, to listen to the jungle, to sleep with one eye open. One night, a jaguar stalked him. He fought it off with his flashlight and mosquito repellent, screaming like a madman until it slunk away. He was no longer a lost tourist. He was becoming something else, a survivor. But the jungle doesn't let go easily. Yossi began to lose his mind. The isolation, the hunger, the constant wetness, it cracked something inside him. He hallucinated entire conversations with people who weren't there. He dreamed of food so vividly he could taste it. He walked in circles for days, convinced he was making progress, only to find his own footprints. On the 19th day, he stumbled into a bog and sank up to his chest in thick mud. He couldn't move. The mud was swallowing him. He lay there, staring at the canopy, waiting to die. Then he heard a voice. It was his own. It said, "Get up. Your mother is waiting." He don't know where the strength came from, but he clawed his way out of the mud and kept moving. On the 20th day, Yossi saw something impossible. A man standing on the riverbank. It was Kevin. His friend had never given up. When Kevin was rescued days earlier, officials told him Yossi was dead. No one could survive that long in the jungle. But Kevin refused to believe it. He hired local men, and searched the river for days. And there, against all odds, he found Yossi. Emaciated, festering, barely human. Kevin cried. Yossi cried. They held each other. Yossi had lost 35 pounds. Worms lived under his skin. His feet would take months to heal. But he was alive. The two men walked out of the jungle together. Karl Ruprechter and Marcus Stam were never seen again. Yossi Ginsberg's survival is one of the most extraordinary in modern history. He faced a jaguar, a waterfall, fire ants, trench foot, hallucinations, and suicidal despair, and walked out alive. His story became the book Jungle, later adapted into a film starring Daniel Radcliffe. But Yossi didn't just survive. He returned to the Amazon years later and helped create Madidi National Park, protecting the very jungle that almost killed him. He says the experience taught him something powerful. Survival is not about strength. It's about the will to take one more step when every part of you wants to stop. That's the only secret. Subscribe for more stories of impossible survival. Because sometimes, the person who survives isn't the strongest. It's the one who refuses to quit.